Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to yet again another fantastic indie creator interview. It's your Cape Crusader Cody, and we're keeping it geekly with our two new guests. We have SM Murphy and Kelly LaCroix. We're here to break down Everyday Magus issue 1 and everything in between. Welcome to the stream, you two. How are you guys doing?
Freaking great, man. Thanks for having us.
Doing really good. Thank you, Cody.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we were talking backstage. It's a little bit snowy over there. Like, how are you two faring with that? You guys staying warm?
Well, there's no tauntauns to crawl inside of.
Worry about my drive later.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Ohio, yesterday it was like the sleet, ice, rain. Today it's just looking like, I don't know, like foggy. It's like, I don't know if I want to ruin your day yet. We're going to wait a little bit. But before we do, let's warm things up with a nice introduction to who you two are and how you guys got into creating indie comics.
Sweet. I'm Sean SM Murphy. This is Kelly LaCroix. We've been best friends since third grade. We got into comics in third grade. And then at one point, I was already living in Portland, and then I just asked Kelly if he wanted to start writing comics. We did a 12-issue series, as of yet unreleased, and then spun it off onto Everyday Magus. And there's a little backstory to it, which involves a published work by a friend of a friend that I won't name him because the book wasn't really very good, but we were like, if this guy could do it, we can do it.
So we're trying to do it.
Hey, I mean, it sounds like you already did it, though. You said you had a 12-issue series that's not even released yet?
It doesn't have a home right now.
Yeah, so originally we had written that over the course of a couple years of getting together once or twice a week. And we had originally wanted to pitch that to a company, see if anybody was interested in publishing. But then we thought, well, nobody even knows who we are or what we're about yet. Why don't we start off with some smaller projects first? So we've got a short story coming out on an anthology that Negative Space Comics is putting out. I believe that's going to print very soon here. And then Everyday Magus is our first sort of full comic look at our universe. And then we've got another couple projects in the works as well. And
then that universe, we're talking about the Omniverse, right?
Yep. Yeah,
or the Omnisverse, excuse me, sorry.
You got it. Yeah, the Omnisverse. Yeah, so we've set up, through creating that original 12-issue series, we set up an entire universe that was at first loosely based around...
That's so awesome.
At first, thank you. At first, loosely based around our old hometown of Billings, Montana, which we felt a very dull and uninviting place growing up. And we thought, well, there were actually a lot of really strange things that happened there and a lot of really weird people. And the more we thought about it, the more it all seemed like these could potentially be things that were in a comic book series. And every town's got things like this.
Mm-hmm.
So from there, it just kind of spun out. We started creating, sort of the rules you would for a fictional universe. And yeah, now we're at Everyday Magus, and this is our first introduction for most people to what we're trying to do.
It's just remarkable because a lot of people start small. So the fact that you guys came swinging out the gates with a 12-issue series, and then you're like, you know what, let's go a little smaller first, and then Everyday Magus came out of that. I think that's so awesome. But you guys met in the third grade and started making comics since then. How was that interaction? Let's talk about that. Let's take a walk in the past.
Okay. Well, let's see here. Third grade, Kelly got sat at the table with the rest of us, and we were already grouped together because we all liked comics. Mm-hmm. And then started hanging out with us. And at some point, I wrote Superman 5, which involved a crossover with the Ninja Turtles and lots of violence because the Batman movie had come out, and I was like, oh, you need some kind of violence because it's Superman. And then he's eating pizza with the Ninja Turtles. That was my cinematic masterpiece. It was 15 pages. I was pretty proud of that.
That would be so awesome, though. Superman could heat up a slice with his heat vision. Like, that would be perfect.
That's more thought than I put into it.
And then I was making comics of my own. In 5th and 6th grade, I had single, I don't remember if it was weekly or monthly comic strips in our classroom newsletter.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was my first go at it. It wasn't until later that we started trying to create stuff together. And that was what, 6 or 7 years ago that we started on that now.
And then was that the start of the 12-issue series?
Mm-hmm.
So what did that day look like? Did one of you just hit up the other and you're like, hey, we tried to do this in the past, like let's do this for real? Like how did that look?
Well, my wife and I had moved to Portland from Los Angeles, like many others. It's a common tale up here, and we were hanging out with Kelly and his wife because they had come up to stay with us to look for a place because they were moving here. And we were having dinner, and I remember going, hey, I had this idea a while ago based on this dream. Do you want to write a comic around it? And I told him about it. And he's like, wow, yeah, let's start doing that. And then we started talking about what can we do with it? Where can we go? And that's when we settled on doing the hometown stuff because we kept talking about the hometown. And then from there, we just started. I think we spent a really long time outlining, and then we started writing issues. And we have the early issues are right now in their second drafts, and all the subsequent issues are in their first drafts. So we still have a lot of room to change that stuff because we got to that end and it was really strong.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I started saying, well, maybe we should start putting together a pitch pack and start talking to people. And Kelly's like, nobody knows us. They're just going to laugh at us. We should probably try and come up with a body of work before we start pitching like a 12-issue series, because that's kind of a lot.
Yeah.
I was formerly really into music and music culture. So I kind of compare it to like before a lot of bands put out their first full-length album, they put out an EP or even a single or a 7-inch. And so I'm thinking this is sort of analogous to that. Like we want people to understand what we're doing first before they really try to sink their teeth into this much larger thing we've got going on.
Yeah, no, and that makes a lot of sense too. You want to give someone a taste before they order off the menu, right? You want to give them an idea of what you're capable of. And man, holy crap, 12 issues, that's still such an awesome thing. Is that so? That's what exactly is the Omnisverse? Is this where you tie in your past experiences with the shitty jobs and coworkers you guys had?
Yeah. So Everyday Magus, we took a character from our main series, and we decided to figure out how he ended up in Billings as a barista, a dead barista, right? Not alive.
Right. The setup is that for our main series, he works as a magical potions creator, but it takes the form of a coffee kiosk. Yeah. So he's like kind of undercover. And so, yeah, we wanted to show how we got there, and we're doing that now with all of the other characters as well. I've been comparing it to like, I don't know if they still do it because I haven't been reading the big two for a long time. But you know how Marvel at least used to have those giant summer crossover things where all the X titles would tie into each other. We're kind of doing that, only we're reverse engineering it. So like all our individual characters started out together, and now we're trying to figure out, well, how did that happen?
I gotcha.
And eventually we'll have that crossover thing put out.
So, I mean, what are some of the shitty jobs we can expect? I mean, I know you talked about Bartista, but is there any other jobs that you guys are gearing towards or planning on writing about?
Oh, man. I worked as an IT professional.
Oh, God.
And that was miserable. That was just for a whole host of reasons. Like my boss was super creepy. Like I could go on. So we channeled some of that, but it's the afterlife and magic, so it's occult IT support. I worked at a dolphinarium for a little while, and what
do you do there?
So I was doing video and like DVDs for the guests who'd swim with the dolphins, but you spend all your time with the trainers who work the dolphins. So I picked up a lot. But one of the stories that one of the dolphin trainers told me was about how he had to go through a special certification training to learn how to artificially inseminate dolphins, because they even though they're horny bastards, they're not good at reproducing activity.
I heard dolphins are super about that life.
It's pretty gross. But he told me that what they basically have to do is they have to jerk off the dolphins. So I'm like, no. And yeah, I give them the special sign that tells them now's the time for you to be jerked off, and they'll roll over on their back because they can hold their breath for half an hour. And
Does it take a half an hour?
I don't know how long it takes.
Oh my god, dude!
They have like 1.5 foot dongs. Like they have huge penises, and he has to just basically put on this special glove, and I was like, that stuck with me for years. So we've got a thing that references that in there.
Right, and like Sean, everything, because we're dealing with supernatural. I should back up a little bit. So the idea in Everyday Magus is that after people die, they are placed into servitude by a giant corporation that has taken over the afterlife and forced to work real jobs.
Yeah.
So so these jobs that Sean's talking about, we had to put sort of a supernatural spin on them. So like, for instance, there's a bus line that runs through that's called Bafo Metro, like Metro bus lines, Bafo Metro bus lines. Some cute wordplay stuff that we're doing there, and trying to take some of those experiences and turn it into something else. So rather than dolphins, we've got dragons.
Yeah. And
oh my god, jerking off a dragon. Oh man, and Sean was like, "I'm cool staying behind the camera. You do whatever you got to do."
I was like, "No, I'm not going there. You have fun with your training." Yeah, and a lot of the ideas for this, it came out of, we just had so many bad jobs. Like I worked in film and TV in LA for a long time, and like I had all of these like crazy freaking not like crazy, like, oh my god, I met Jessica Biel. I didn't. I nudged her out of the way for coffee. Like
that still haunts him to this day.
I was just like, excuse me, and then somebody goes, "That's Jessica Biel." I'm like, fuck, I'm fired. No, but like people like gunfights and like poop and all kinds of crazy shit happened on these sets because they're just basically trailer parks that move around and shoot things. So and a lot of that was really actually kind of traumatic and hard and not fun. And so we started talking about the jobs that I had and the jobs that Kelly had, and how we kind of look at modern work culture as sort of it's sort of a toxic idea, like that your whole identity and your life should be rooted in work, in your job. Like, like you work in movies, you work in public TV, you work in whatever, but people will be like, this is who you are, this is your identity. And we kind of didn't like that, so we started playing with the idea and infusing it into this character's world of how he ended up as a barista at a magic potion shop in the world's most
awesome. So Kelly, what does the creative process look like for you two when you guys are working on the script? Does one of you guys come up with the idea and then the other hones it, or how does that work?
More or less. I mean, that's kind of the larger
ping pong.
Yeah. There's a lot of give and take, but the roles that we fall back into most often are Sean comes up with an awful lot of ideas. He's just a very generative guy. He doesn't really need an outline to write. He can just go and see where things lead him. And I'm very much the opposite. I really like structure and trying to figure out where things are going before we get there, because I want to make sure the end and the themes and the tent poles are all going to be hit in just such a way, So we kind of make up for each other's weak spots, I feel like, and prop each other up by hopefully being good at the thing that the other one maybe isn't paying as much attention to.
So Sean, when you start the script writing process on your end, how does that look like? Do you get into any sort of special routine, or do the ideas just start coming and you just start writing them down?
Most of the time when I've had an idea, it's pretty weird. Like the 12 issue series that we were talking about earlier came because I had this insanely vivid dream that with music and credits, it was like a trailer for a movie. And I woke up and I wrote what I could remember down, and then doing that, spoiler, that's how you remember your dreams. You write that shit down as quickly as possible. But yeah, I did that, and then that spun off the first series, and then we took rules and ideas from that and expanded the universe. So most of the time when I have an idea, it's because I'm just about to fall asleep, and then my brain cooks out some weird subconscious just stuff, and I'll just wake up and write it down. I've got like weird like poetry lines that I've written down that just happen as I'm falling asleep. And I'm like, holy shit, that's a good line. So that to me is just like I just have to get that basic idea down, and then I start when I start writing. I just think about like what are the things that I am talking to myself about in the car, and how can I make it work for this? Because that's probably what you're ruminating on. That's probably why this came up. So work on it.
So right now, I think would be a perfect segue. Let's go ahead and pull up the campaign for this issue and see what all the hype is about. We'll have a chance to look at some of the character design, some of the interiors, and then we'll get a chance to talk a little bit about the creative team as well. So we are looking at Everyday Magus, comic issue number 1. The Great the Great Resignation meets the afterlife. What happens when you die? You just go back to work. Currently at $3,361 of a $5,000 goal with 82 backers and 8 days left to go. You guys are like over that halfway mark. How are you feeling right now with the final, almost the final week to go?
Yeah, hopeful and scared.
we can make it. We just need enough people to pledge, and then we can print it and get in people's hands.
So is this your first Kickstarter that you guys have ran?
It is.
So I mean, how are you feeling? I often hear that Kickstarter can be very taxing, very stressful. Like how are you guys dealing with that?
Disassociating mostly. It's exhausting. I mean, it's actually like it's not just the month the campaign is running; it's all the time leading up to it. I think we started maybe a month early ahead of time. We should have started 2 months early, because we just didn't know. You don't know until you do the thing what you need to know, no matter what you read. At least that's how I operate. I have to swim in a thing's guts to understand it, and yeah, you need to have a couple of months of lead time to really like work this out. We did what we could as quickly as we could to make it happen, and
from here on out, it's just anxiety and checking your phone 40 times a day.
So what were some of the things that you learned that if you could go back and rerun this for the first time that you would do differently?
Oh, I just learned 2 days ago that it's not a good idea to close on a weekend, and we are closing next Saturday.
Really? Why is that?
I think it's because, and this is just an assumption, but I think it's because work sucks, just like we're pointing out in this book. And everybody who is bored at work and just like, God, I don't want to be here. Let me find some distraction to take me out of this. What's some escapism I can do? And you look on social media, and that's where I think a lot of eyes are getting on this project, and Kickstarter projects in general. And so without that, I guess on a Saturday or Sunday, it's not recommended because people just aren't. They're out doing the things they want to do instead of looking at social media. That
makes sense. Sean, what about you? What's something that you learned that you wish you could do differently the first time around?
So in order to set up, taxes become a thing, right? Even though we're going for only $5,000, if we suck it into one of our accounts, because that's $5,000 of 1099, we have to pay 43% of that in taxes. So
wow.
So we formed an LLC, and then we found out we need an EIN to open a bank account. So we had to get the EIN, and then we found out just because the IRS gave us a letter with our EIN that same day, that was the fastest part of the process. It takes more than a month for the IRS to move that information into a database that Kickstarter's payment processor can view. So they don't validate you for about a month.
If your EIN is new.
Yeah, if your EIN is new.
Yeah, if you registered as a business and you list, and they've listed your EIN like, months or years back, then you can get on no problem. But we didn't know that, and we ended up delaying for a month, and it took, I think, right around 3 weeks for it to be approved.
Yeah.
And the month was just like our leeway.
Wow. You guys are, I think, interviewed 327, and First time I've ever heard of anything of that nature. So I'm actually happy I asked, because I'm sure there's other people who are going to be getting into this for the first time who have no idea. What's the importance of doing that? Does that safeguard you, or does that help like alleviate some of that, tax burden?
So right now, if we get funded, any money, basically all the money that we have for the goal right now would just go to printing and shipping. There's really not a lot of room for any kind of profitability. But let's just pretend for a second that Everyday Magus is like a huge title. People love it. If we suck that into one of our accounts, then that technically becomes our income. Putting it on the corporation means that the corporation pays the income, and you avoid tax liability personally. It's also a cheaper tax rate. And then because we're using that money specifically to produce the product, we can write those costs off. But that's only as the corporation. So we literally take nothing in as ourselves, and we probably won't. We're going to be operating at a loss for a very long time with this, which is fine. That's what you have to do, because if you're going to be serious about trying to break in professionally, you have to assume that it's going to be a long-term, large dollar investment just to get in the door, and that's what we're doing.
So we have our first look at an interior right here, and I love the interiors in this book. Before we dive too deep into anything, can we give a shout out to the creative team?
Oh hell yeah, let's do that. Yeah,
so Pike Abania is the artist on Everyday Magus. He is a creative director at a large ad agency in the Philippines. He's also friends with Sean's wife, and that's how we met him. He had wanted to do comic books ever since his art school days, and we hooked up with him, and it was fantastic. He's a great artist, and we're super happy with all the work he's done.
I just love, like, it feels like there's so many like Easter eggs going over it a second time, like hearing about the Ninja Turtles eating pizza with Superman. I'm seeing the pizza boxes right here, and I'm like, okay, I'm wondering what else is there that I missed my first read through.
Oh, there's a lot. There's a lot of every panel has something in it that is hinting at something else, if not for this story, for subsequent stories and these characters' arcs. And we also were really fortunate to have such an amazing experience with a first timer like Pike Abanelia. But we also have veteran colorist Dan Jackson from Dark Horse on here.
Wow.
As well as Keith Wood, who's an award-winning creative director and designer. He's designed books for like Neil Gaiman and stuff. And somehow he was willing to work for us. Work with us. I have no idea why. He's awesome. He's one of the nicest guys ever, but he's way above our grade.
I might just throw in before we go on to another subject too, that those things. I'm glad you're voicing that, Cody. That you were catching things in some of the panels. We were trying not to do a whole lot of exposition. We wanted this to be something that the reader has to pay attention to, and maybe has to read a second time in order to pick up on a few things. So a lot of things are kind of hidden, strewn about.
And the interiors are just as gorgeous too. Right here are some of the character designs. Chalk is such an interesting character in himself. I love the name too. What inspired you guys to name him Chalk?
Sigil magic, I think.
Originally,
right?
Yeah, we were talking about occult stuff, and chalk is used, or at least in stories, it's used to draw circles to trap demons. So we thought that would be kind of an interesting bend on it. The original characterization of Chalk was much more goth barista. I think our very original description of him was like lots of tattoos and piercings, and like Hot Topic if it was a person.
Tattoos still play a pretty central role in the story. You can see one of them in between his two stances there. They are sigil magic, as tattooed by our octopod character Cyanea, who I think you're scrolling down to after this one. Oh, yeah, not yet.
So, Mr. Yu, I thought, was an interesting character as well too. So he's actually an antagonist in the story.
Yeah, minor antagonist. Yeah,
we're calling him a minor antagonist. Yeah. He's a foil as well, I guess. He plays around a lot, and he's not wholly sinister through the book, but he definitely gets in the way a lot.
Mm-hmm. You have a friend who's really bad at managing their emotions, so they get drunk and they say and do stupid shit, and then you're just like, well, that's just our friend. Let's go pick him up.
Sounds like me in my 20s.
You were the friend.
And then right here we have another interesting character as well. So give us a little bit about her.
So Cyanea is a member of a species that had been hunted to almost extinction before they discovered that the ink they possess has all these magical properties. So ominous powers captured her, and they force her to tattoo souls. Because it's much more economical than their other method of controlling souls, which we call the curse of the big empty. And I might be getting ahead of myself there.
No, that's fine. I think the thing for people to know about the tattoos is that is the way that all these souls are bound into working these horrible menial jobs in the afterlife. She is the sort of device that the evil corporation, Ominous Powers Inc., uses to make that happen.
Yeah,
that's awesome. I love just how like detailed these designs are too. When you were working with the artist, what type of references were you giving them, or did you let the artist kind of take the wheel and come up with their own design?
We gave Pike substantial mood boards that we had organized, kind of giving us ideas about what we wanted the characters to look like and kind of what was informed. And then some stuff. We just really we spent a lot of time trying to say like this is what we've got in our minds, but be okay with just doing whatever you want. Like we're totally fine if you start changing things or if your inspiration takes hold. This is just the baseline.
Oh, go ahead, Cody.
Oh, I was gonna say like Gary's design. Like this is so interesting. It's like it's like a cubicle boss and then like an Aztec like god almost combined into one. Like I love this so much.
There's a lot that I like about Gary that we hadn't even thought about. So Pike had done some additional research into Mayan death gods, and he said that typically that they are depicted as having the flesh on the hands is gone. It's always skeletal because the flesh on your hands rots first. So that's why if you look at his hands, they're just skeletal. He's kind of depicted as a rotting corpse. Usually, I think in the Mayan culture, they were more skeletal just to help kind of sell the death theme. Mm-hmm. But I think what Pike did here is brilliant. And he also had no idea what their headgear would look like. So he built that kind of based on his best research and assumptions. It looks great.
I think for folks to know, getting a first glance at Gary, he is a former Mayan death god, and belief in him had run out, so he was no longer powerful. So the only thing he could do was be employed by Ominous Powers Inc., who uses him as a middle manager to look after souls. So
my God.
He is if you think about your like most joyless middle management person you've ever met, that's Gary.
Yeah.
That fall from grace, and then just to top it off, by anyone who's listening, if your name's Gary, I'm sorry, but to call him Gary is just like a chef kiss. I love it.
Yeah, this dude right here. It's one of my favorites.
So this story sets the stage for a persistent narrative universe with a huge potential. So this is the start of the ominous verse too, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
That'll be the first thing that probably anybody reads outside of the Wolfminder, which if you didn't know was part of the ominous verse, it wouldn't have any bearing.
The Wolfminder, the short story that is soon to be published through Negative
Space. In that anthology, right?
Correct.
Okay, cool. So you guys have the opportunity to read that. Is that running live right now, or is that going to be available for purchase sometime soon?
The campaign is over. I don't know when it's coming out. We know that it's being printed soon.
So, guys, just stay tuned for that. You get a chance to check out the earliest introduction to the ominous verse. So let's go ahead and check out some of these rewards. I know this cover right here is from our good friend Dennis. This is gorgeous.
Yeah, he did great work with that.
Yeah, Dennis Manier. He's I believe he's up and coming. I don't know how much work he's done for the prose or anything, but he just had a book come out called Asteris, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And it's just gorgeous, man. It is beautiful, and it's hitting. Like if you hop on Twitter and try to search for Asteris, it's all over the place.
It's all over, yeah. It is blowing up, and his art is just like, it's so gorgeous the way he like combines his palettes. Like I love it. So guys, let's check out some of these reward tiers. Right here is a link to check it out with us. If you can back it, we would love to see that. But simply putting this on Facebook and Twitter works just as good. Word of mouth is 100% free, and you have nothing to lose. So you can go ahead and just tip $1 just to help the cause. We have $5 for a digital only. How many pages is this first issue?
28.
So 28 pages for $5, outstanding price for the digital right there. We have $10 for a physical copy of cover A. You can have 15 for that variant cover, and then double your Magus for 23. So what is this tier going to be like?
So this tier is both the Pike cover and the Dennis cover. It includes the physical copy, digital copy. You get added to our newsletter, which we won't bug you, don't worry. And then we're going to include some OPI stickers because why not? Sure.
And best of all, guys, you get to put a 1,000-year curse on your childhood bully. So that's just that's an extra little free of charge thing they throw in. We have the retail tier right here at 25. So 5 copies to sell at your local comic book shop. Pins and needles at 30. Kelly, what's this tier about?
Yeah, so that's everything we've mentioned already. Plus, we're getting some pins made up, little enamel pins. The mock-up is pretty great. We're very excited about them. They are not the everyday Magus logo, but the OPI logo. We should maybe explain. There is an in-universe OPI, Ominous Powers, Inc. That's the evil corporation that runs the afterlife. We are also calling ourselves Ominous Powers, Inc., but spelled I-N-K. That's us as a creative duo. We just try to have some meta fun by doing that. Yeah. The logo on that pin is our logo for our writing.
That's awesome. And then we have at 35 the retail tier 2, the variant sequel. So 5 copies of that Dennis cover right here. And then 50, but wait, there's more. So this looks like one hell of a bang for your buck too. And then we have the Magus Maximus. Sean, what's this one about? 200 or more? This looks like one hell of a tier.
So this is everything. Get the digital, both copies of the physical, sticker, pin. Your name gets printed in the book. So we have a couple of pages extra that we're going to put anybody who supports at this level, and I think the level below it, get to have their names printed in it with a special thank you. And then we are creating with a local vendor an Everyday Magus Employee of the Month plaque.
So awesome.
With your name on it. So that way you are officially an employee of Ominous Powers, Inc., and we own you for eternity. Thank you.
That idea was thought up by our friend Sean Wynn, who had Strange Solutions. Little plug for him.
Yeah.
And that's it. So here is a look at some of the creative team as well. We have Sean and Kelly right here in the flesh, but let's check out some of the other creative team as well. So we have the main cover, interior art, character design right here.
That's Pike. Pike Abania.
And then colors.
Yep, that's Dan.
Mr. Dan Jackson.
And Keith.
Keith Wood, correct. Yeah.
He's a living cartoon. That's
what he actually looks like.
Yeah.
A few people we haven't mentioned yet as well. Sean's wife, Orlin, did some design work. She's the one who did the OPI logo. Thank you so much, Aura, for doing that. We've got Mr. Dennis Manier. After that, we just talked about his brilliant work.
And that beard.
It is a nice beard. We had him on the show not too long ago, and he was like, I would say probably one of the most well-dressed, I guess, like in a suit and tie. And I'm like, dude, like I wish I would have known. Like,
and then
he's great.
Our final contributor was Raymond Bermudez. He did the back cover that you saw just a couple seconds ago of them sitting in the office. It's very unlike his normal work, but I think that kind of adds to the comedic element.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If we haven't mentioned it yet, the story is a comedic heist, so it's all intended to be a little bit funny.
Yeah.
I love the little troll right here too. Like seeing that, like on like a second glance, I'm like, holy crap! It's like packed in a way that's not like you notice it. You know what I mean? It's not like packed in to be packed in. It's like so subtle. It's like it's perfect.
Yeah, he did a great job with this, and Dan Jackson did the color on it. Raymond, though, if you look him up, he's done stuff for Marvel, DC, Dark Horse. Really, really talented guy.
Yeah.
So
That's
we're
awesome.
really lucky that we can work with some serious industry vets.
So, guys, after going through the campaign in its entirety, what would you like to say to anyone who might be on the fence about backing? If you just had like a few seconds to kind of just take that window and address it.
Well, you probably want to break out of the daily grind. That's what we're trying to do. We want to be able to break out of the daily grind and do this. And the only way to do that is for this Kickstarter to be funded so that we can do the next one and the next one and the next one. Like that, at least speaking for myself, that's my goal. I want to just write. This is the path. This is how you do it.
I might throw out that I hope that people can relate to what we're doing. You know, we wrote this story inspired by these jobs that we absolutely hated. I hadn't mentioned it, but I worked a lot of more blue-collar jobs. I've had, I believe, 23 or 24 jobs in my life now. And all of them, but maybe two, I just absolutely loathed. And we know a lot of other people feel like that too. It's hard not to sometimes when you're forced to do this. You know, you got to make money, you got to support yourself, but man, you got to do a lot of stuff that you just don't like. I hope that we tap into something there that people will want to see and can relate to.
Yeah, and man, I've worked my fair share of crappy jobs too, and it's the worst. Like you have to find something to keep a roof over your head, so sometimes you just have to take whatever you get. And a lot of times you're doing more than you're getting paid to do, right? Like it's like you're expected to work above and beyond for pay that is not above and beyond. And it's like enough is enough. So, Sean, Kelly, what's next for you guys in 2023 outside of Everyday Magus? Like any other titles that you guys are excited to announce or work on?
I am nearly done writing Old 31, which is a horror comic set in the ominous verse. It's going to be introducing and bringing in some characters from the main series and kind of adding some backstory to how they arrive. And Kelly's got a pretty interesting project too.
Yeah, I'm also messing around with some horror, more in the vein of Twilight Zone sort of thing.
Okay.
Also takes place in the ominous verse, and the working title on that is The Pump House. I don't want to speak too much about it until it's closer to completion.
That's so cool. That is awesome. Congratulations to you two for coming out with new titles as well. And separate, it sounds like you both are kind of working independently this time around.
A little bit, yeah. Like the universe is getting big enough that we have to start dividing.
Yeah, the options are there. I think what we've both said is that we're really happy with it because it feels like any genre of story we want to tell, we can tell within the constructs of this universe.
Yeah,
that's so cool.
So this way we can branch off and explore the avenues that maybe the other person isn't that interested in, but you know, maybe the other one has a lot of interest in, and then we can always come and work together on these other titles too. There's a lot of room.
That's awesome, and I'm so excited to hear that. And anytime you guys want to come back on and talk about those titles, we would love to get you back on. But before we let you go, I do have to ask a little bit of advice for anyone who might be new and listening. So for anyone out there looking at creating a world of their own, like, you know, talking to two individuals who've created such a huge universe as it is, what would be some of your advice to help them kind of just get started in doing so? Like, what would be some of the easiest stepping stones for them to begin with?
Well, you're thinking, Sean. I am going to throw out that pretty much every advantage or good thing that has come in my life has been a result of knowing somebody else. So try to make connections where I think would be the only sort of general advice I would feel comfortable giving anyone, aside from the advice of just do it. Just do it. What's stopping you? Just do it.
Only you are stopping you, right?
Yes. Yeah.
That's very true.
Yeah, we tell ourselves all these things, all these reasons why we can't do stuff. Just fucking do it.
Yeah.
So, Sean, what about you?
I would say knowing people is definitely, it's more than half the battle, but you have to be able to finish things, and those things have to have some sort of resonance to someone. So you really have to kind of tap your own origins to figure out what makes you tick so that you can explain it in fiction and make other people care about it. And that, you know, I think that's why you hear writers and like kind of artsy fartsy people talk a lot about their traumas. It's not so much that they're trying to say, look at me, I'm so special. It's that they're trying to understand themselves and express themselves and put that out into the world. And I think that there's validity in that. So if you start that practice of just kind of looking at like, why am I where I'm at? What have I done right? What have I done wrong? And what have I learned about myself? You can start applying that to other characters in your fictitious worlds that it become resonant.
Awesome. That's awesome advice from you too. I really appreciate that. Everyone watching, right here is the link to check out this campaign. And if you can't back, like I said, just put this on Facebook or Twitter, anywhere you can. Word of mouth is 100% free. With that being said, it is time for us to wrap up. Thank you too for swinging by. Everyone watching, I hope you all have a lovely Friday. But most importantly, guys, keep it geekly.